The Da Vinci Code movie review. So this is going to be primarily a review of the movie, but I'm also going to kind of talk a little bit about the book and my experiences with it. I read the book back in 2005, and this was shortly before I had started the project of reviewing every book I read. So as a result, I don't have a review for this book, kind of either on my blog or a YouTube video review. But I remember it vaguely. I picked it up because everybody was talking about it back in 2005. The book had a lot of buzz behind it. A lot of people I knew were talking about it. Some of them loved it. Some of them hated it. But it was the book everyone was talking about at the moment. So I picked it up and I found the book really addictive. It's, now that I think about it, it's a little bit transparent what it was doing. It was kind of integrating this kind of long kind of thesis maybe about kind of the I don't remember what it was about, like the descendants of Jesus Christ and how the church had suppressed the feminine power or something like that. But it integrated the thing into this huge chase. So they were always just kind of one step ahead of the police or kind of one step ahead of the bad guys. And they were jumping in and out of cars and jumping out of windows and all these kind of chases that went on while the information was gradually being revealed, which, was a clever way to do things. It worked. It kept me addicted to the book. And then, of course, as you read the book, you're getting all this information, and you're like, wow, oh, really? Is that true? And then if you're anything like me, I'm a nerd, so, like, I can't, after I've read something like that, where it's teasing out kind of various historical facts or religious facts, I feel like, okay, now I've got to find out how much of this is true or not, right? There should almost be a warning label attached to the book saying, like, this is not a book. You're actually committing yourself to weeks of research. Now, at the time, kind of in 2005, there was a whole publishing industry, publishing responses to the Da Vinci Code. Some of them were kind of conservative, reactionary responses because conservative Christians hated this book. But a number of them were by well-respected scholars. So, for example, Bart Ehrman, who's a very smart guy, who is not a conservative Christian by any stretch of the imagination. He's an agnostic who writes kind of against conservative Christian interpretations of the Bible. But yeah, he pretty much went through and he says, yeah, this is all nonsense. None of this is true. Which is my impression is that the scholarly community was kind of saying that, yeah, none of this is really true, or there was like a kernel of truth in a few of the things which was just highly exaggerated. So then, how do you feel about that, huh? Yeah, I don't know. And I think Dan Brown himself has gone back and forth in some of the interviews. In some of the interviews, he was saying essentially, yeah, the historical parts, every part in here is 100% true. It's like, I put it in the context of this murder mystery, but all the historical parts are 100% true, and I could rewrite those up as like a thesis, and that would be all true. And in some interviews, I think he's saying, look, guys, it's fiction. I'm a novelist. I've got a get out of jail free card because this is a novel, so no fair nitpicking me on the facts. I don't know. I did feel a little bit kind of, once I found out how little of this book was true, I did feel a little bit misled by it, deceived. Yeah, and again, I'm not a conservative Christian, so I don't have an ideological dog in the fight. but just, the fact that you don't want somebody to tell you something is true and then go through and research and find out it's not. But then again, is it fiction or is it meant to be? Who knows? I'll leave that debate aside. So, yeah, when I finally got around to seeing the movie, leaving aside the whole ideological debate and leaving aside kind of the questions about how much of this is true or not, and just judging the movie on the entertainment value, it's a little funny because when you're reading the book, you're reading it, at least I was, and I was thinking, wow, this would make a great movie. You've got so much interesting information in here, and you've got that interesting information packaged inside this long kind of breathless chase. So wouldn't that be fascinating to watch as a movie? You're watching the heroes just kind of narrowly escape from one danger to another, just like they do in the book, but you're also getting all this interesting information at the same time. That's what I thought before seeing the movie. It turns out I was dead wrong. This kind of story does not make the transition to a movie well. A good comparison maybe is Indiana Jones. You think of like a movie like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where they are teasing the mythology a little bit. And in the first one, they're talking about the Lost Ark, and they're actually, if you know your Bible stories, that kind of introduction where they're talking about how Jerusalem was invaded by the Egyptian king Sennacherib and stuff like that, that actually is all in the Bible. So they have done their research, and they are teasing this a little bit, but when you look at those movies closely, there's very little information in the Indiana Jones movies. They just tease it just enough to give you that air of kind of ancient mystery. And then the rest is just action and adventure. The Da Vinci Code, on the other hand, just has too much information on it. The book is kind of the book spends a lot of time arguing a thesis, and it is kind of, in the book, it doesn't feel that long because you're reading a book. But it doesn't transition into a movie. There's just too much people sitting around and talking. And I don't want to be that anti-intellectual guy who's like, talking, information, I hate it when movies try and teach me something. But it doesn't work in this context. It may have worked in a documentary because you're in a different mindset when you turn that on. I think Hollywood movies can also be a great educational tool as a biopic. I mean, I know there's a whole separate debate about how realistic a biopic is or should be, but there's a potential there. But with a biopic, you're actually seeing the events dramatized. In the Da Vinci Code, what you have is you have people in the 21st century talking about events that happened in the first century. So it's just a lot of people sitting around talking. And the director does his best with it, with kind of, bringing in some kind of visuals and stuff like that. But he can't save it. There's just too much talking to make this an interesting movie. I thought this was one of the boringest 2.5 hours I sat through, which is a shame because I really like the novel, or at least I like the entertainment value of the novel. Yeah, it's. I think this movie is kind of largely forgotten now, although I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Are people still talking about this movie? It was a big deal when it came out. I remember people were protesting outside of the theater in my town, and I think in several towns. And what they really should have done is just left this movie alone, because half of the publicity this movie got was just because of that stupid controversy. If this had just been a normal movie, it would have been forgotten about so quickly and not made any money. Yeah, but this is the way it always works, isn't it? Protesters always take the bait with these kind of movies, and they always give Hollywood the free publicity. Yeah. I mean, that was true with The Last Temptation of Christ. That's true with all these movies. Anyways, those are all my thoughts on this.